Hey, this is Jason with 4W Knives. Today's video, we're going to put some handles on a knife, but first we're going to open up this delivery from one of our viewers, Mark Anderson. Not too long ago, I did a short video on knife handle day in the shop, and in that video I had a fishhook Damascus blade. I couldn't figure out what I wanted to put on for a handle. Mark, who is a knife maker that also stabilizes and makes knife scales, reached out and said he had the answer. Offered up this bag of goodies and I did not turn it down. Mark seems to be a great guy. I'm going to share some of his information later with you. I wanted to show you all of these really cool knife scales that he sent. Alright, so here's the blade that we are going to be putting the handles on today. Some fishhook Damascus. Everyday carry knife is what I'll call it. Out of all those great scales that Mark sent, we've decided that we're going to go with this maple burl. Looks really good. I think it's going to be a perfect match for it. This has all been stabilized by Mark, and about the only thing I have left to do is flatten them out a little bit and get to work on the knife scales. So I'll bring you along with that. I want you to see what this finished product is going to look like. And in the description, I'll have some of Mark's information. Mark is really just kind of getting started, but I know he would love a visit from you guys on his social media accounts. And once he gets his website up and running, he'll be in full business. So hope you enjoy this little short video. All right, so I took these to the disc grinder or disc sander and I flattened them all out. It really didn't require a whole lot of removing, but it's a good policy to do that because you need everything flat whenever you're doing this. My first step that I do is I put the two pieces together like so. I make sure that I have enough covering up near the blade of the knife so I can get whatever swoop or design that I want. And of course I get good coverage in the back as well. A lot of different ways. Some people will use super glue to tack these together. Some will glue one on the knife at a time, let it dry, and then do the next one. The way I've been doing it here lately is I'll just tape it together. And if you've seen some of my videos, you've seen this. It's nothing new. But I'll just take it, wrap it, and I'll make sure that everything is still in proper alignment before I do the top. And the idea of this is the scales, I can drill the holes, place the pin, and nothing will move. So whenever I put the glue on it to glue it up, there's no misalignments or anything like that. It works pretty good for me. For the pins, I'm using this steel rod. It's pretty long. I think it's a 3-foot steel rod. I buy this from a local hardware store. I'm thinking they're $3, $4, something like that. It's a 3/16, and sometimes about the only thing I have to do is sand off a little bit of the coating on the outside so it fits a little better. But I just cut these to the length, put them in a box, and use them up. It's a lot cheaper than buying the individual pins that you would from some of the knife making stores. So anyways, all I have to do here is I'll drill a hole, put a pin, drill the other hole, put the pin, and then we'll get to work grinding it out. Once I get both holes drilled and the pins set, I'll take it to the portaband and cut off any excess. This cuts down on the amount of dust that's in the grinding room. But then I'll take it to the grinder and I'll do a rough grind. I'm not trying to make it perfect. Anytime that I see some sparks fly, I'll move on to the next spot. I'll do all my finish grinding, getting it down exactly to the steel later on, and I'll use a finer grit belt where I'll clean up the spine and the belly of the knife after I'm done. As soon as I get it rough shaped, now at this point I want to put in the curve, or I don't know what you call it, the shape at the front. I do different styles, but on this one I kind of want to match that front just a little bit. So I'm going to start right behind, I think they call it the ricasso, and I'm just going to have a slight back a little bit, something like that, and I can adjust it once It is very important that you do all of this finish work on the front end of these scales prior to the glue up. If you wait, it becomes a nuisance. It's really hard to get to. You can scratch up the surface. There's just lots of problems. I like to use a 220 grit belt to put the little contouring at the very front of it, and then I'll take it to the buffer, and it has really helped me do my finish work once all the glue up and stuff is complete. Here's a couple of things I use for my glue ups. First off, I'll use these little popsicle sticks. I use this DevCon from Jantz. Of course, there's a bunch of different types. This is pretty easy to mix. I like using a paper plate with some type of baking sheet or something like that on top. First thing I'll do once I get in is I will take a blade and I will rough up the inside of the scales. Just gives it a little bit more room to grab onto. After I scratch the surface on the scales, I will go to the acetone and I'll wipe everything down. The scales, the knife, the pins, everything, making sure that it has a clean surface for the epoxy to grab onto. I mix both sets of the epoxy in an even amount, and then something that I've been doing lately is I'll add a little bit of dye from some, it's just dark leather dye, and it's just a little tiny bit I put on the end of my stirrer, and it just darkens the epoxy in case if it happens to show at some point, it blends in better on the knife handle. When applying the epoxy to the knife and the scales, I put a generous amount, not a whole bunch because it's going to squeeze out anyways, but I do cover, make sure everything has some on it. I make sure I get it into the holes in the knife as well as the holes in the scale. And then I will put it on the pin and move it up and down until I make sure that there is a coating that is touching the scale to the pin. Get it all clamped up, applying good pressure but not real hard pressure. You don't want to squeeze all your epoxy out. Do a little cleanup. Trick I like is using these Q-tips to get right at the front of the knife. That's really hard to get to, and if you do have to remove it after it's dried, it will scratch up your surface on the knife blade itself, and you don't want that. So after the glue up, there's really not a lot of finish grinding to do on this one. I just need to flatten it out, make sure the pins are nice and smooth, and then there's just a little bit of contouring on this. This knife handle really didn't set up for a big palm swell or anything like that, so we're just going to knock off the edges and make sure it's comfortable in the hand. These little 1-inch wide scallop belts are great for that. I use a 200 and then a 600. It really has cut down on the amount of hand sanding. We still have to do a lot of hand sanding, which then after that we get to apply this linseed oil and really see it come to life. And here we are, all finished up. This maple burl that Mark sent really complements this fishhook Damascus. I want to thank Mark again. He did this completely free. He didn't ask anything in exchange. He's just a nice guy. Wanted to see it on this knife. On another note, if you want to see how this fishhook Damascus billet was made, I'm going to add that video in the description. It was on a previous knife build that turned out pretty good as well. Thanks for watching.